The Liberal convention just wrapped up, and Mark Carney is warning Canadians of hard times ahead. This comes as he prepares Canada for what he calls the New World Order, and as he manufactures a majority government. And that's not even the biggest story from the Liberal convention, because at that convention, Liberal Party members adopted some pretty disturbing policies. And something surprising happened at this convention, which you need to see. But first, my name is Elie, and welcome to my channel. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and consider getting a paid subscription for less than $5 a month, because unlike the legacy media, I take $0 from the government.
Journalism commentary 1 year anniversary.
I don't believe journalism being funded by the government
You
is the
have to rebuild
solution.
the foundation.
You have to retell the stories.
Market conservative
Other news that actually matters.
I hence wanted to ask. I think they should answer their questions, especially if they're politically charged.
Part 1, the disturbing policies. Before we get to Mark Carney's speech and the warnings he gave to Canadians, we have to start with the policies that were both discussed and adopted at the Liberal convention. But before we even get into that, we have to go back to another Liberal convention, the one that took place in 2016 in Winnipeg. This was the first convention that was held with Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister of Canada. This was the beginning of the Liberal government. And this matters because this government's first convention offered us a very important preview into what was going to come ahead. Now, some people dismiss these conventions as not important, but I really disagree, because what is put on at these conventions is very heavily curated by the party. They really do want to give the country a message and an image, and they choose very specific people to put on stage to do that. And who did they put on stage in 2016? Well, it was a man named Steven Guilbeault. At the time, Steven Guilbeault was simply known around the country and arguably the world as a radical climate activist. He was not a politician in any way or shape at the time. But the Liberals thought he was worthy of being given a platform at their convention, at their first convention as the new government. So Guilbeault gave a speech and said this.
Our planet is transitioning away fast from fossil fuel-based economies and energy systems in favor of renewable energy sources, clean technologies, and the understanding that our current patterns of consumption are simply unsustainable. Oil will be increasingly challenged by the prices on carbon, by drastic reductions of the subsidies it has enjoyed over the last century, by aggressive government regulations and policies, and by a mobilized civil society that it says enough.
This was not just some random speech from an activist. It was a preview of what was to come. And in the years that followed, Steven Guilbeault was made a star candidate of the Liberal Party of Canada and then appointed to cabinet as Minister of the Environment, where he proceeded to pursue an environmentalist agenda very much linked to the radical ideology that he held, including when he spoke at the 2016 Liberal convention. I bring this up to show that at the first convention of a new prime minister, there has been precedent that people are invited to give a preview of what's to come in the years that follow from that said prime minister and his government. So who did Mark Carney decide to bring on stage in 2026 to give a preview of what's to come? Well, it was a guy by the name of Patrick Pichette. He is a tech executive, and he was invited on stage to rail against brain drain, which is the process of Canadians moving to the United States for better jobs. And Patrick Pichette pitched a $500,000 exit tax. Basically, if you want to move to the US from Canada for better opportunities, you have to pay $500,000.
We as Canadians have subsidized my education to the tune of, you pick the number, $500,000? Right? 500,000. And if it's a graduate student, go up, right? 30,000 TN go to the US every year. You want to save yourself $5 to $10 billion? Shut the TN program. And then keep them in, or make them pay their $500,000 so that if they leave, I'm okay with that. You want to go to the US? Give me back my money.
Now, as soon as he said that, people obviously reacted to how insane that proposition is, because yes, it is insane. First of all, the Liberals are to blame for the poor economic state that Canada is in today. They created the very economy people are trying to escape. They did this with taxes, regulations, and other anti-business measure. Income tax rates in Canada go as high as 54%. The Canadian dollar, which used to be stronger than the US dollar, now trades at around 70 cents US, and Canada is poorer than Alabama. So it's no surprise that 40% of Canada's top 1% earners have left the country, as well as up to 50% of the next 9% of earners. It's also why almost half of young Canadians are open to Canada becoming the 51st state, and a lot more want to move to the US. I noticed I recently went to a college campus to ask students if they wanted to move to America, and 80% of the people I spoke to said yes. But instead of focusing on the why this is happening and try to make it better, the Liberals, at their heavily curated convention, decided to put someone on stage to propose that instead we give people a $500,000 exit tax if they want to leave the country. In other words, if we can't convince people to stay, we will make it nearly impossible for them to leave. And this is the person who the Liberals decided to put on stage for Mark Carney's first convention. With Trudeau, it was Stephen Guilbeault and his radical environmentalism. And with Carney, it's Mr. Pichette and its proposal for a $500,000 exit tax. So given the past trends and precedent, it's a very reasonable question to ask. Where is this going? Does Prime Minister Carney agree with a $500,000 exit tax? If not, why isn't he come out against it? So we should ask the question. The media should ask Carney this question. And until we have a strong and definitive no, then we should not rule out that this may be something that the Liberal Party would be open to implementing. There were other policies that were actually adopted by the members because these conventions often see policy sessions. Now, I do want to just note, and this is also the case with the Conservative Convention, that these are non-binding, meaning that Carney does not have to adopt policies from the members. But in the past, when you look at the Liberal Party, we have seen them put into law policies that were first proposed at convention. So it still matters what the Liberal members decide to adopt. And the policies adopted were disturbing. The first policy that was adopted at this convention that should concern you, it definitely concerns me, is a policy regarding so-called misinformation and disinformation. This policy proposes to establish a quote-unquote panel of inquiry made up of so-called experts to combat so-called misinformation and disinformation. Now, there is a lot of fake news out there. There's a lot of propaganda out there, and we see people fall prey to fake news. But what this proposal leaves out is that one of the biggest purveyors, spreaders of disinformation and misinformation in Canada is actually the Liberal Party of Canada. There are so many examples of where Liberal politicians have misled, have gaslit, or straight up lied to Canadians in order to get power. So we know that they're not actually concerned with misinformation and disinformation because they spread it all the time. So what is this actually about? Well, it's simple. It's about censoring critics. You see, the Liberals use misinformation and misinformation to try to shut down arguments and claims they don't like. Very similar to how they use the word racism to shut down criticism and arguments they don't like. And a proposal to deal with misinformation and misinformation will almost undoubtedly lead to more internet regulation. The Liberals also adopted a proposal to ban social media for those under the age of 16. Now, this is something I personally agree with as an idea. I've spoken to people like Jonathan Haidt, who's an author and a professor who makes a really good case for banning social media for kids. And we've seen the horrible effects that social media has on kids' mental health, as well as how predatory some of these tech companies can be. That said, I am weary of the Liberals wanting to do it. First of all, I don't think that the Liberals are actually worried about the well-being of kids online. And that is because they oppose having a law to prevent kids from accessing which is far more harmful than social media. If they were actually concerned about the well-being of children, they would be also supportive of preventing kids from going and accessing websites, but they're not. So what's this about then? Well, if you look at today's generation, Gen Alpha as well as Gen Z, who spent a lot of time on social media, they are among the most conservative generations. They are really conservative. They get their news from social media, and there's a lot of conservative news sources on social media. Social media has played a part in making the youth more right-wing. Clearly, the liberals, being who they are, being the tacticians that they are, have noticed that. And clearly for them, banning kids from social media, an effect of that would be that they would be consuming less conservative content. And if they want to get their news, they may have to get their news from the CBC. Now, personally, I still would like kids not to be on social media. I don't think that my political ideology should take a precedent over that, or even more important over that. But it's something that we have to keep in mind when it comes to liberals. Quite frankly, I don't trust the liberals to implement this. Just like I don't trust them to build high-speed rail. I mean, this is the party. Every time they touch something or try to do something, it just doesn't work. It's a disaster. And I just worry that if they are going to adopt such a policy, it's going to be a very vaguely written bills with a lot of so-called unintended consequences. One of them could be that there could be digital ID as a result of this. Now, before we go to Mark Carney's speech and the warnings he gave in that speech, I do have to show you this little clip. This is from the Liberal Women and Black Caucus event at the Liberal Convention. So yeah, these are the people you want in charge of which apps and websites your kids can access online? I don't think so. Sorry, I'm out. Part 2, the speech. As is the case with every convention, the Liberal Party convention had a speech from the leader, the Prime Minister, which in this case is Mark Carney. And in that speech, Mark Carney had a warning for Canadians of hard times ahead. Watch.
The path we've chosen is hard. There will be headwinds, black ice, steep climbs along the way. We'll have to be pragmatic and determined to keep moving forward. But this is the journey that we must make. The foundations of the international order, the order which Canada helped build and from which we have benefited for so long, that order is crumbling.
Now, whenever a politician warns of hard times ahead, you should run for the hills. And that is because politicians are the most gaslightingly optimistic people of all time. They always will tell you that everything is going well, even when it's not. So if a politician tells you that things are about to not go well, then you should be really worried about that. But again, maybe that's why they do want that $500,000 exit tax, because they know things are going to get so bad. They actually want to keep everyone in because otherwise there would be a mass exodus even bigger than the one we've seen so far. And I also think we have to ask ourselves, this so-called New World Order that Mark Carney is building, a New World Order that includes relations with communist China, is it really what we should be doing? Is it actually necessary? Now, to be fair, Canada has traditionally been over-reliant on the US. We were trading with them more than we did with ourselves, and that's absurd. But a big reason for that was because of the Liberals. It was because of Justin Trudeau, who for 10 years was complicit in making Canada dependent on America, while turning away possible other business from countries like Germany and Japan who wanted to buy our natural gas. But Trump, who has made lots of deals with other countries, shows that he is still open to trade. He wants it differently, but it's not like he wants no trade. But we're now trusting the people who put us in this mess to be the ones to get us out of this mess, the Liberals. And here's where I have issues with just trusting their plan and that they are doing what is actually best for their country. This lies in the ideology of their base, anti-Americanism. You see, hating America or America derangement syndrome is a core part of the Liberal Party of Canada and other left-wing Canadians. These people don't view themselves as Canadians. They don't have any real definition of what is a Canadian. They simply view themselves as not Americans. Here's Justin Trudeau saying so in an interview with CNN.
Canadians are incredibly proud of being Canadian. One of the ways we define ourselves most easily is, well, we're not American.
And obviously, anti-Americanism was part of Mark Carney's speech.
People choosing a wine from the Okanagan over one from California. Anyone had any bourbon recently? No, I don't think so, no. The days of our military sending 70 cents of every dollar to the United States are over.
Now, I will say right off the top there that the reason why Canadians are having Canadian wine instead of American wine, as well as non-American liquor, isn't necessarily by choice. It's because they've been forced to. You see, we have in most provinces government-run liquor stores, and the politicians have decided to pull the liquor off the shelves. We have decided to have a socialist command economy where the government tells us what we can and cannot consume based on political ideology. So for Mark Carney to make that comment is not very genuine or accurate. Also in his speech, Mark Carney recognized that Canada used to build, but really has not been building that much these days.
We used to build in this country.
The reason for us not building anymore is, again, because of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. They made Canada an unfriendly place to do business. I'm a business owner. It's brutal how much the system is built against business here. And it's no surprise that back in 2016, you had 71% of Canadians starting their businesses in Canada, whereas today it's only 32%, and the number of Canadians who started businesses in the US has doubled. And let's not forget, Mark Carney, before being Prime Minister, was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. So it's not like he's scot-free here. Oh, and by the way, Mark Carney took time in his speech to praise Justin Trudeau. Have a look.
Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau widened the scope of our inclusive society.
I mean, this is quite unbelievable. The cheering, the praising. Justin Trudeau destroyed Canada by every single metric possible. Canada is worse off. We are poorer. We are more dangerous. He broke the immigration system. Every single thing has gotten worse under Justin Trudeau because he was an unserious, childish leader. So to see Mark Carney, who's supposed to be the man of the moment, who's supposed to fix everything, cheer and praise Justin Trudeau, well, that reveals a lot, doesn't it? It's clear that the Liberals do not regret anything they've done in the last 10 years because they don't think they actually did anything wrong. And it begs again the question, why should we trust the people who put us in this mess in the last 10 years to be the ones to get us out of it and rebuild Canada? Count me skeptical, okay? It's not partisanship. I'm just skeptical that the people who put us in this mess, and Mark Carney is in that group. He was the economic advisor of Justin Trudeau, and now they're certainly supposed to get us out of this mess, especially if they're cheering the people and the policies that directly put us in this mess. Part 3, what I didn't see coming. Now, you've just heard me criticize the Liberals quite heavily. And yes, I am not a fan of the Liberals. But a reason why I got into political commentary and journalism is I'm sick of all this one-sided stuff, the echo chambers, the partisanship. And while I do have a lot of criticisms of the Liberals, I do think there are a couple things that should be pointed out as less bad or perhaps even good that took place this weekend. And the first one is the following. This is a exchange between a Liberal MP and Rebel News journalist Alexa Lavoie. And I'm showing you this because under Trudeau, the Liberals and Trudeau himself were really nasty towards independent media. They just were. Justin Trudeau famously went on a whole rampage at one of the debates about how much he hated Rebel News because they were one of few outlets in this country that don't take government money and that is conservative. So to see this MP basically say very respectful and nice things to Rebel News was very good. Have a look.
I always have a ton of respect for the work you do. Even though I don't probably agree with 60% of the words that come out of your mouth, I have a ton of respect for the amount of effort that you put into it. And I'm being incredibly genuine. I'm being serious. I have a ton of respect for you.
I did like that Mark Carney talked about supporting our troops in his speech. Again, Justin Trudeau was the one who was telling veterans they were asking for too much. So it's nice to have a prime minister that now recognizes our troops. And lastly, even if I do think some of this is performative, I was happy to see Canadian flags at the Liberal Party convention. Remember at the NDP convention, they had a Palestine flag? It was nice to see the Canadian flag. And I'll give them that credit for them for having the Canadian flag. Anyways, this sums up this video. I do think there's some concerning things out of this convention. I'm definitely concerned about this idea of an exit tax. I think that's radical. And unfortunately, overall, Carney's speech, I just there was nothing that inspiring in it. I don't think he's the super leader that the CBC and the media thinks that he's set to be. I think a lot of Canadians are going to be disappointed in the years to come. And yeah, I mean, that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Stay tuned. We have a lot of very exciting videos and investigations coming up. I'm basically trying to be Canada's Nick Shirley. We're putting a lot of money into that, tens of thousands of dollars. So being invested in this investigative journalism. So keep an eye for that. That's all coming out soon. And yeah, thank you for watching. And of course, God bless.